everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Miami Realtors. It is part 2 of our series on Get Savvy with Section 8. So again, welcome. This is part 2 of our Get Savvy with Section 8 series. My name is Evian White de Leon. I am the Chief Legal Counsel for the Miami Association of Realtors, and I am very grateful today that we have Khalid Bryan with us, who is going to continue sharing some of what he has learned throughout his practice in both tenant side and listing agent side with Section 8, how to make sure you are really successful with your business and Section 8 vouchers. To give you a preview of what's to come, or maybe I should start by telling you, if you missed part 1, you will want to go back and watch that. It is recorded. Why? Because it is a foundation and a primer for what we are going to talk about today. So if you missed part 1, that's okay. Feel free to stay on. Just know that we are not going to cover the same topics exactly, okay? So today is more about the business of Section 8 and how to make sure that you are successful. Next week, same time, same place, April 19th at 10 a.m., we are going to be back. Next time, we will be joined by Stephen Rosario with Nan McKay, which is the private company that administers Section 8 for the Miami-Dade County Housing Choice Voucher Program. So we are really lucky that he's going to be joining us to give us a perspective from the administration, what you can do to avoid pitfalls from their side, and you will have an opportunity to ask him all the questions your heart's desire. And then to wrap up Fair Housing Month, the last Wednesday in April from 10 a.m. to approximately 11 a.m., it will be me with Kenya Robertson, who is the CEO and president of Hope Fair Housing Center. We will be talking with you about Section 8 and fair housing. So be sure to sign up for all of those. If you haven't signed up for the next 2, make sure you do. You need to sign up for those. And on that note, we'll go ahead and get started today. So again, today is about is a continuation of the business, the good business practices when working with Section 8. And we want to remind you of the disclaimers before we get started. This is not legal advice or representation. This is for educational purposes only. And of course, I have to remind you of our association's antitrust policy, which is that, of course, we fully adhere to all antitrust laws, state and federal. And part of that means that all business decisions are made unilaterally and independently. So today, again, is for educational purposes only. We are so grateful that Khalid is here to share with us today. And without further ado, Khalid, I am turning it over to you.
Go ahead.
Just kidding. I'll take it back for a second.
I'll take it back.
And sorry for the fake out.
Good morning.
Good morning. Make sure you stay on mute. Do not come off mute today, please. We are recording today, so we want to make sure we have a clean recording for others who watch this. We will be sharing the slides. Kevin, thank you. Many thanks to Kevin Percelli with our association. He will be sharing the slides later. He will be sharing the recording. And we will be answering questions in the chat. Do not come off mute. Please put all of your questions in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat, and at the end, we will have a Q&A session. So we will get to as many questions as we can. So, all right, please, for real this time, I'm tossing it back to you. Yes.
All right. All right. So welcome, everybody. Good morning. And I really appreciate everyone for being here. I will recap on some of the important parts from last week as far as like how Section 8 works in case anyone missed it. But for the most part, today is going to be about the business part, how to get more business and how to get more rental deals closed, because it's not all about buying and selling. Rentals make money too. So here we go. All right. So just a recap on how it works. I'm going to briefly go through this. The tenant's going to receive a voucher packet from housing. It outlines their budget, how much they're approved for, and it tells them what areas they can go for too, because all housing authorities are in control of their own area or municipality. So once they have that packet, they find a property with or without a realtor. Obviously, it will be easier with a realtor, and it'll be your best interest for them to do it with you. They get an offer accepted by the landlord. Once they secure a lease, they will not execute it. Don't execute the lease. Send the unsigned lease to the housing authority for their review. If there is an association, the housing authority will tell you, okay, this lease is okay, go ahead and apply for the association. Watch out though, because some associations will take 30 full days to approve. And if you have a tenant who's say in a rush, or maybe their voucher is about to expire, an association with a 30-day approval requirement may not work for them. So you might want to omit those from your searches. So just to recap, they will have to be approved by the association before housing will schedule an inspection, which is usually around the last step. So once everything's good, tenant and landlord fill out their respective packages. They are about 15 to 20 pages. They are tedious, but they must be done. And as an agent, I would advise you to proofread this packet before it's turned in to make sure it's filled out properly, nothing's missing, and it doesn't get sent back, which would start you all over and just cause an unnecessary delay. So the caseworker reviews the packet, the lease, they let you know if they need any changes or they'll ask questions about it. And then they'll schedule an inspection. The inspection in itself is kind of tedious. There is a checklist you can find online to make sure you know what they're coming to look at. And after a successful inspection, when they say, okay, you're good to go, you can move in, you can schedule move in, execute the lease at this time, and they will schedule the owner's first direct deposit for their portion of rent. Just in case you do not know, housing may not pay the full 100% of the rent, but they will pay a portion of it based on the tenant's income. Every year, they're going to reassess the tenant's bank statements and income to see how much they're making and how much they're spending, and reassess how much they're going to give them. Once all that's good to go, then you can go ahead and conduct your walkthrough, move the tenant in, exchange their portion of rent and the full security deposit for keys, because again, tenants are responsible for the security deposit. Housing will not pay that. All right, let's keep it going. Your role as a listing agent, tenants agent, or landlord. You'll notice I didn't differentiate from this who does what, because my philosophy is if you are involved in this deal in any aspect, it should be your business to make sure it goes flawlessly and make sure you have a clear understanding on what's going on. So whether you're the listing agent, the tenant agent, or the landlord, you have money on the line. Even the tenant has money they can lose as far as a deposit, and everyone else just has money to be made. So make sure it goes well and your money isn't delayed. So the first thing I would do, no matter who I am, is obtain the inspection checklist found online. Again, you're gonna have to pass an inspection, so it's best to know what they're gonna look into. This checklist will tell you exactly what the inspector's coming to see. It's gonna say, we're gonna look at your outlets. We're gonna look at the condition of your floors. Are your tiles cracked? We're gonna look at your stove. Does all your appliances working? If you have one burner on your stove or 4 burners that does not work, you have failed inspection. So it's important to look at it and know, though the owner may say it's okay, the tenant may say it's okay, and you may say it's okay, what does the inspection report say? Do a walkthrough before inspection with this report in your hand, with this checklist in your hand, and just do like a previous, like a preliminary inspection yourself. Again, whether you're the listing agent, the landlord's agent, or the tenant, make it your business to make sure this is done right. Someone must be present to let the inspector in. They will not use a lockbox. If they get there and no one's there and there's a lockbox, they don't care if you give them the code, they're not going in. I'm assuming it's the risk that if they fail inspection for something being broken, it's the liability that you could say that wasn't broken, you must have broke it, so you have to make sense of that. So again, don't just trust that the landlord said, oh, no worries, I'll make sure they get in. If you're the listing agent or the tenant agent, probably be there anyway, just to make sure. Yeah, okay, they got in. Then if you want to, you can take off, but the inspection is going to take 15 minutes, so you might as well just wait. If the power is off, I would recommend turn the AC on well in advance, because if you've ever been in a hot house in Florida, it's in the hundreds in there sometimes. So the AC isn't just going to kick on and cool it off. It's going to have to work. It's going to have to get out all that hot air. It's going to have to like really cool off. So if they get there and they see the vents running, they hear it and they put their hand up to it and it's hot, you failed inspection. So they won't wait. They don't have time. They have multiple inspections to get to. Like I was saying, they're quick, 15 minutes. Ensure the property is move-in ready. It's clean. There's no furniture. If the landlord tells you, yep, we're good, the property's good, go make sure yourself. Look at it and say, okay, we're good. Or you can tell the owner, hey, I know it's clean, but we actually got to get this couch out of here. They won't want to see that. Proofread the packet to ensure submission. Before submission, I mentioned this in the last one. Don't trust that the tenant or the landlord filled it out right and submitted it right. Look at it yourself and say, okay, did you know that they wanted a copy of the deed? Did you see this? I don't see a copy here. You can get the deed yourself. It's public record. In our MLS, we go to IMAP. I believe we changed the name IMAP, but that is where you would find it. Feel free to slow me down because I'm fast and I like to run through all this information. Okay.
Yeah, maybe one notch, maybe one
Why
notch.
not?
I'm following along because I've
All
been in
right,
this,
I got
I've been in
you.
the
Well,
trenches a
you
while,
saw this
but
before. I got you for sure.
yeah.
All right, so like I was saying, obtain any requested docs as mentioned in the packet. So it's gonna say we need a voided check. It's gonna say we need a copy of the deed, which you can print out on IMAP. It's gonna say we need the owner's driver's license. Anything like that, you wanna make sure you ask for it and have it, and that it's with the packet to be submitted. This is probably the biggest thing. Number 9, speak to the caseworker yourself to understand a full understanding of the process. So what tends to happen is one person will be the point of contact for the caseworker and then have to relay all of that to everyone. So let's just say we all leave it up to the tenant. Since it's the tenant using the voucher, let them deal with the caseworker. They're going to hear what they hear from the caseworker and try to relay it to you the best they can. Mind, this is not a real estate professional. So they're going to say, well, we need an unexecuted lease or we need this. They're going to word it the best they can, but it's up to how you interpret it. And now you're the tenant's agent. So now you're going to relay that interpretation to the landlord's agent, which is going to be another interpretation. They're going to interpret it how they can, and they're going to relay it to the owner. So it's kind of like playing telephone. This one message went to 4 different people in 4 different classes and said it the best they could. It gets lost. It gets confused when you're dealing with the government, when you're dealing with other people's money, when you're dealing with your own property and commission, you want to make sure you know exactly what you're in for. So definitely email the caseworker, maybe have a CC reply all chain so everyone's on the same page and know exactly what the caseworker is asking for and what the caseworker has an issue with, so you can work together collectively and make sure it's done right. I feel like that was clear. I feel like that was that. All right, we're moving on. Okay, finding more business with Section 8. This is what it's all about. So what I like to do and tell my agents to do is we market okay to advertise rental properties that don't have a strong association approval requirement. Like I said before, if an owner, the owner himself, him or herself, or the listing brokerage has a requirement saying it's a single family house with no association, but we want a 700 credit score. We want you to make 80,000 a year. You can negotiate that. You can get around that. You can present a strong enough offer to try to make them feel as though maybe they're wrong. Maybe I should let this tenant in. If it's an association and it's in their bylaws that these are the requirements, that's firm. You can't get around that. So I like to do a preliminary search, and the number one thing I try to omit is associations with 30-day approval times, given they won't do inspection until after you've gotten approved. So who has 30 days? Unless your tenant says we need 2 months, we have 2 months to move, then you can try it. But you won't know if they can even pass inspection or not until a month later. So I'd omit those. I also found that sometimes these associations with long 30-day approval times tend to also come with these income restrictions and credit requirements. The ones that approve you rapidly or within a couple of days or weeks, they tend to be a little easier. And as long as the owner's okay, they're okay. But again, that's not a fact. This is just my opinion from what I've happened to see more often than not. So don't quote me on that point if you see an association with a 7-day approval.
And Khalid, to jump in on associations, right? We all know that associations pose really special challenges in lots of different areas, right? And this is no different. And we are going to talk about the fair housing implications for housing, HOAs and condos at the end of the month. But I also wanted to flag that, if you do have customers, right, who you want to look at HOAs,
your mic went out.
Pardon?
Your mic went out.
Oh no. Okay.
You're good now.
Oh, okay. So if you do have customers who do want to, explore the possibility of moving into places that are condos or have HOAs, you should still pass those along to them, because you also don't want to get dinged with any allegations of steering at any point. You do want to be, and you do want to be really clear, right? Like, look, from a business perspective, your chances of getting in are, these are the risks, right? You might spend a lot of money to try to, apply and get in, and you might not meet the deadline. It may not be feasible. We can try, but do not just automatically, and this goes for any type of listing, right? Do not automatically filter out anything, because you don't want to get hit with allegations of steering. You don't want to get hit with any allegations of antitrust violations. So keeping that in, like, balancing the business advice with all of the, fun legal advice that I am always dishing out. So
Thank you. See, I'm glad she's here, because I wouldn't have known. Okay, so definitely, did I skip? A page? Oh no, sorry. I think I skipped the page. Okay, boom. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so yeah, definitely you can look into all. I guess it's more so if you're in a hurry and you know they don't have 30 days, then in that instance, go ahead and cut out the 30-day approval requirements. But either way, you should be able to see their approval requirements before applying. It should be clear and stated either on the application, on their website, or you could just ask the association. Just say, ask the listing agent, can I have the contact information for the association, or who's the association? Reach out to them, say, hey, I have a tenant. I want to know what your approval requirements are. Under no circumstance do you need to mention Section 8. You just want to know, what are your approval requirements? Is there a minimum income? Is there a minimum credit score, minimum down payment, deposit? Anything like that is pertinent to know.
And I
Right here,
loved what you said last week, Khalid, not to repeat, but to repeat from last week. I really
yeah,
loved when you said, look, I'm never going to call somebody, a landlord, and be like, hey, do you accept firefighters? Or do
yeah,
you accept teachers? Right? Like, that is
right.
not a well put together offer. And I really like that advice.
Right, because what a lot of agents do is it'll be the first question they ask, saying, hey, I have this client using a Section 8 voucher and I just wanted to know, like, for what? What are they qualified or not? Do they meet the income requirements? Do they meet the credit requirements if they exist? Not every property is going to have an income requirement. They will just look at the offer and look at your income and see if it makes sense for how much the rent is. So number two, we need to correct advertise rental listings on gosection8.com. They recently changed the name of this. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they changed it to affordablehousing.com. I
.com.
think,
Yep. It
yeah,
redirects though. It'll redirect you. I dropped it
it'll
in the
still
chat.
take you there. Yeah, so what this is it's just a classified listing for property owners who want to market their property and just let people know that they're willing to work with the Section 8 program, or have before, or maybe they know their property is going to be good with the inspection. So to heighten your chances of getting an offer using a Section 8, if that's your goal for whatever reason, or just to have another avenue of tenants coming in, I'd put your rental listings on gosection8.com. It doesn't have to be anything unique about them to be Go Section 8 approved. Will they pass an inspection? Does the association, if there is one, not have any super strict approval requirements? And if the answer to both of those is, I guess, yes and no, then put it on there. You'll get calls left and right. I'm pretty confident, as long as your price isn't crazy. Oh, another thing to really note legal wise, make sure whatever you're advertising to the general public has to be advertised the exact same for Section 8. So meaning you can't have a property on Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com with this price, this deposit, this amount down, and have it on Go Section 8 at a higher price, a higher amount. It has to be fair and the same no matter who is applying. So please make sure you're not doing that. Doing a good job with your current client so they give you a referral. That's probably the best thing. If you do a successful job closing one rental, they probably have more friends that need rentals saying, well, how did you do it? Who helped you? Referrals are probably the number one way that we're going to get this repeat business, because you get, let's just say one person gives you 2 referrals. That's 2 more people to give you 2 referrals each, which then turns into 4, 8. It grows. That's what you want. That's what we're here for. So do a good job and be nice. Big thing, get in contact with housing authority caseworkers and let them know you're happy to help when possible. Again, it's a big field of confusion, miscommunications, and just I can't think of a last word or adjective, so we'll skip it. But get in touch with them and just let them know, hey, if you have any clients that are having a hard time finding a home, or maybe they can't find a realtor to work with, I just want you to know that I'm on call. Feel free to give them my number and I will help if possible. You want to end it with if possible, because obviously you can't guarantee to move everyone into a home. Some people may not qualify because housing is not going to do a background and credit check. They can get the voucher, come to you, and then when you do a background credit check, they could have 8 felonies within the last 8 years and 3 evictions. You know, who knows? But we all know that's very difficult to place, and it's going to take an incredible amount of time that you have to be able to provide. So if you don't have the time to adequately help someone, you have to let them know, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to provide the time that they're going to need.
Well,
Is
it's
that
an ethical well, there's an ethical obligation as well, right? Under the code of ethics, you have to be qualified and able to provide the services that you are providing, right? Like if you've
Right.
only done residential transactions and then you jump in to do a commercial transaction and you fumble it, right? That could be a code of ethics violation. So also be really mindful about, always be mindful of the code of ethics as well.
Yeah, that's true. You can't promote yourself to be an expert in a certain field and not know what you're doing, because they're going to trust that you're telling them that you know what you're doing and put all their faith into you. So if it doesn't go well because you dropped the ball or just didn't do something simple right, it could be a whole issue. It could be, I could have went somewhere else and got this done, but I've wasted X amount of months with you. So definitely be careful. offer acceptance tips. Oh, hold on, I got 3 people. Let me let them in. Come on in, y'all. Okay, boom. So offer acceptance tips. Be careful with these. So offer more rent per month. This increases the owner's cap rate, which we all know a cap rate, their capitalization rate is your rate of return. A higher cap rate usually comes with a higher risk property. So more risk, you need more money from it. A lower cap rate tends to have a property with lower risk, meaning you're not likely to have to do maintenance every few weeks. You're not likely to be chasing down rent payments because you have such a solid tenant. So if you do have someone with, say, an unfavorable credit score, unfavorable background, then their risk goes up. So how do you solve that? By increasing their cap rate. So, but you can't just say you want 2,500, here's 3,000. It still has to make sense for the market. It has to be a situation of, okay, they want 25, the market, these other properties are going for 27, their voucher amounts for 3,000. We can do this. We can go ahead and offer a little bit more. Under no circumstance, though, could you offer well over what housing is willing to pay and then pay the difference in cash, because you would be telling the housing authority one thing and doing another, which is fraud. You can't tell them something and do the opposite of what you just told them.
And the U.S. Attorney's Office regularly prosecutes those cases. You do not want to be at the wrong end of that investigation.
Right. Letters of recommendation, they tend to always help because it kind of lets the owner know a bit more about the tenant versus what the application is showing. It's like a word from a previous landlord, an employer, a boss, a friend or colleague. The more the better. Just because it's just a way to beef up your offer without spending extra money. No more than 2 people per room. You don't want to overcrowd these houses. It will freak the owners out. Include background, credit, and income in your report, because in your package, because you want it to be a full offer package. You don't want them to have to come back asking for more things, because if they have 2 other offers that have everything and they're already a better offer, there's no need to come back and ask you for more stuff. So you want to give your clients the best chance possible up front by making sure it's a full offer package with everything they need. Also with that, you want to make sure it's a well-written and presented offer package, because if I see a contract that's written horribly and it looks like this agent has no idea what they're doing, I'm a little more skeptical to work with that agent, just because I'm a little nervous. Like, this is a big deal. I have to work with government agencies. You don't really know what you're doing. I'm gonna have to pick up extra slack. So you want to make sure everyone's comfortable in this when they read this offer. That goes with number 7, show knowledge and understanding of the process. If you have a well-written offer and you've included all of this, it shows you pretty know what you're doing, and I'd be comfortable letting you show me how it's done. Verify if the property associations have minimum income credit score requirements. Compare that to your client's application and voucher amount. So basically, you just want to look and just make sure before you send this application, I've already checked the approval requirements. I already know this client is going to have no issues with the association, so you don't have to worry. I've checked it. Here are the requirements. Here's my tenant. Here's the application. Let's do it. So basically, you just want to take all the guesswork out of it. Make it a comfortable situation for the owner and listing agent. Things to note in your offer. Okay, this one is a slight gray area. If the owner insists on getting 3 months of rent funds, I would write it as a 1st month rent and 2-month refundable security deposit, because again, housing is gonna pay every month for all 12 months. If the tenant has a portion, they can pay their portion of first, their portion of last, and the security deposit, but their portion may only be a few $100s. So if the owner is like, absolutely not, that's not enough money, then I would probably see if I can negotiate a refundable security deposit, so when they move out, they get it back. But again, you have to make sure your client is able to afford the security deposit they're gonna put up, because some properties are very nice. They have marble floors and you need a little more to protect it. So it's case by case.
Right. And we chatted with a little sneak preview of next week that is relevant to this point. We had the privilege of talking with Evian Rosario yesterday with Section 8. And, we brought up that the Section 8 admin plan says that a landlord can only charge 1 month of security deposit. And he came back and told us, which was really valuable information, that, look, yes, that's what it says, but you can do the workaround to that is to do a non-refundable holding deposit. And that is something we are going to get into more detail about next week, and how to structure that so you're in compliance with Section 8. And the whole reason, right, is so that your offers are competitive, so that you can get your customers into units. And the other caveat, right, behind all of this, if you are working from a listing agent side, you have to make sure that whatever you're doing with Section 8 customers or potential tenants that you are doing with everyone. You can't have, special rules for two groups of people, right? Because then you run into fair housing violation land. But I thought that was a really interesting point that Stephen brought up yesterday, and we are going to talk about that more next week. So don't forget to sign up.
Yeah, Stephen had a bunch of information that even I had no idea about. So it was very valuable. Yeah. Okay, so in additional terms, now mind you, I'm not a lawyer, not a legal professional, so I can't tell you specifically what verbiage to put. I'm just telling you what I've been putting in my contracts, and it's been working for me. So in additional terms,
at the direction of your customers.
Yes.
At the direction of your customers. Yes.
Yes. So I put tenant using housing authority voucher towards rent payments paid via monthly ACH deposit. Lease contingent on successful inspection. First month's ACH deposit may take up to 30 days to process. And what I'm doing here, this is the last page of the contract to lease where it says additional terms. I'm just kind of, now is when I'm disclosing all of these little things to the owner. Mind you, at no point did I call the listing agent and say I'm using Section 8. At no point did I even mention Section 8, but I did use it, put it in the offer itself, so it gets straight to the owner and they can read for themselves what they're in store for. So they're looking at it, it's like, okay, so they're using the housing voucher, no problem, I see it here. They're using, I have to pass an inspection first, no problem, they let me know, and bonus points, they even attach the inspection report that they're going to be looking for. So now I'm less worried. I see what I'm getting into. They let me know the first month payment may be a little delayed. Okay, I understand that now because it's all laid out here. Versus if I just call a agent and say Section 8, they're going to not know what to do, what's going on, probably freak out. And the owner tends to do the same. If you don't know something and it's new and scary and you hear about people getting in trouble left and right, you tend to freak out and avoid it. And I've mentioned this before, I just put it again and again because it's very important. Please make sure you check with the association approval requirements before sending this offer and even before showing the property. If you know it's not going to work, there's no need, doing it. Things to know. As we all know, Section 8 is an additional income source. It's not a type of personal property. Any property can take Section 8. It is illegal to discriminate against someone's source of income, which we know and have spoke of. Again, if I'm a firefighter, if I'm a police officer, it does not matter how I make my money as long as I make it legally and I can prove to you that I'm making it. Inspections are required before lease commencement and renewal. It's very important to let your owners know that, yes, we passed this inspection, they moved in, but when it's time to renew your lease, when you want to raise your rent, we got to do it again. So you might not have your realtor with you this time. It may just be the tenant and the landlord. So you have to make sure the tenant and the owners know that you're going to have to submit an updated document to say, here's what we're raising the rent to. They know the market goes up every year, so they expect it, and let them know, okay, you can come in for inspection this day, this day. They're going to want to schedule it. They send another inspector, basically to make sure you're taking care of the property as an owner and the tenant is taking care of your property as a tenant. So make sure you're aware of that. If there isn't, you saw me times I mentioned this association thing, because you really need to know that they will not schedule inspection or really do much for you until you have that approval, which I know is tricky. Because the association, they may tell you we need an executed lease, but housing's going to say we want an unexecuted lease. So that's why I send housing the unexecuted lease first. And in the lease, I put this lease is contingent on a successful inspection. So if you fail if you don't get approved by the association, they won't do inspection. There was no successful inspection. So, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you exactly what to put, but this is what I put. This is what I put.
Yeah. And there's, at the direction of your customer, of course.
At the direction of your customer.
Yes. And, that the HOA thing, again, is causes a lot of heartache for a lot of people in a lot of different contexts, right? And, we will talk about this in more detail, but, HOAs do not have the same type of liability that you all do as agents. And so that means that you often get stuck in the middle. If an HOA tells you we're not accepting Section 8, which is not okay, and you all are relaying that information, right, you all can get dinged with a fair housing violation. And so we're going to talk more about that again at the end of the month. And if you are experiencing these issues with HOAs, we urge you to reach out to the advocacy team at Miami Realtors. This is a shameless plug. I guest star for the advocacy team when they need me. And so if you haven't seen them, met with them, we have our own political action committee. We have our own Miami Realtors PAC, right? And part of what we do is advocate for legislative changes to make your lives and businesses better. So if you are seeing problems in the field, we want to hear about them because again, we don't represent our individual members and I can't provide legal advice or representation, but, we can certainly start looking around to see if, there are systemic issues that we can fix. And we often do, not to toot our own horn, but to toot our own horn. We often do. So I'm going to put this in, I'm going to put our advocacy email in the chat. If you see issues in the field, please email us.
Love it. All right. And another big thing people get messed up on, especially landlords and listing agents, is when you get a Section 8 offer, a lot of times they don't look any further than that. They just see Section 8 and assume, oh, all rent is guaranteed. That's all I care about. The money is there. And they move them in and then things go wrong. So it's very important to note that a credit check, a background check, and an income screening is still required when sending offers, especially if that voucher says that the tenant is responsible for a certain portion of rent. You're still going to want to see that they have income coming in to cover whatever that portion is. Even so, they need a bit of income coming in because they got to clean. They got bleach costs money. They have to maintain the electricity. If the power's out, it's too hot, you get mold. So you still want to screen your tenants just like any other. You just want to account for the voucher amount as a part of their additional income. Oh, I also learned yesterday that there are a percentage of tenants that are known as zero income families, and housing does pay 100% of their rent. And if I'm not mistaken, they also get another source of income from somewhere else in order to cover the electrical, the things like that. You as a landlord can also just include power and water in your rent payment, and they'll pay you a little more to cover that difference. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, and which means that just because it's zero rent doesn't mean it's like zero rent. That means that the housing authority is actually paying you as the landlord the entire amount of the rent. So yeah, there aren't too many of those. It's hard for Section 8 voucher holders to like move, to get security deposits and things like that together. So there aren't that many, but they do exist. So if you see that, don't freak out.
Yeah, and also, even so, just because the 100% of the rent is guaranteed, you're still going to look into a credit report and background, because even though you don't have rent to pay, you can still be evicted. You can still have an eviction on your record for violating another lease term. You can still have horrible landlord reviews because, yeah, you move in, you're not paying rent, but you trash the property. So you still want to know what's going on here. Why does your credit report say that you move every 3 months, every year? Things like that, you want to look into and just really know what you're getting into. And I've said it, tenants also pay a portion of rent depending on their income. They reassess their income every year. So just know that, just a little fun fact. Things to know continued. Okay, tenants pay security. Okay, this is what the tenant pays for. They're gonna pay the security deposit out of pocket, application fees out of, is this leaf blower too loud? I'm sure you can hear me. Tenants pay security deposits out of pocket, application fees out of pocket, their portion of first month's rent out of pocket. Housing pays all 12 months, so they typically don't prepay last, but if a landlord requires it or will not get over it, then they will just pay their portion of last. They will not pay 100% of whatever housing's portion.
Right. And you have to make sure that that is a uniform practice for Section 8 voucher holders and non-Section 8 voucher holders. So you can't say, okay, cool, Khalid, you don't have a Section 8 voucher, just give me first month and security. And then if I have a voucher, say, no, you got to pay more upfront in security. You can't do that.
Yeah,
because that has a disparate, it's what's called a disparate, that policy has a disparate impact on a protected class. And we'll talk more about that on April 26th.
We're getting there. All right, so housing pays between the 1st and the 5th. It's not going to be the same exact day every month. So what we don't want is for our landlords to, on the 1st of the month, wake up and check their account and freak out because there's no direct deposit in there. It's within that first week. I don't know what makes it different, but we'll learn next week, I guess. But definitely let them know, listen, between the 1st and the 5th, they'll make sure it's not late. But the first payment, that can be anywhere to 30 days late, a whole month late, because they got to get you in the system. You got to catch the next cycle. But once you're in there, 1st and 5th, like clockwork, it should be. If it is late, you can reach out to them and they will surely rectify it. If I'm not mistaken, though, if the tenant's portion is late, you can bill them a late fee and evict them for non-payment. But if the housing portion is late, I don't believe you can bill them a late fee and you cannot evict them. Like you can't.
That's correct.
That's a thing to know.
That's correct. Yeah, that's a big issue that tenant rights lawyers see all the time. So remember that if in general, right, if the tenant is no longer a participant in Section 8, then yeah, of course you can charge them the entire rent. But if they are an active participant in Section 8, you cannot evict them for non-payment of the HAP, the housing assistance payment from Section 8. Their portion, yes. And if you are charging late fees and you happen to be in Broward County, you want to make sure you've reviewed the Broward County ordinances on late fees and how those can be charged, whether or not they are for tenants with Section 8 vouchers or not.
Yes. Okay. Now, these payments, they can go to either the owner's account directly or the property manager's account. In the packet, it's going to ask for your bank account information where you'll tell them, give it to my property manager or give it to me. Now, if you are a real estate agent or sales associate that is doing property management, this money has to go to your brokerage account, and they should have a separate account to receive these rent payments. You cannot receive the rent payments yourself into your own account. Can't. Do not ask agents, do you accept Section 8? And if ever asked, always answer, yes, we will accept it. Everyone can apply. It's up to the application to be denied for a specific reason. You can't just say no to this community or this type. That's it. That's it. I'm Khalid Bryan, broker and owner of the Investment Property Gurus. Follow me on Instagram. Khalid explains it all. I explain things very well. And thank you, Kevin. And thank you, Evian.
No, thank you, Khalid. Really appreciate you being here today and taking the time to share your wealth of knowledge in these transactions with our members. Of course, I come at it with the Debbie Downer perspective of the legal scaries, and you'll get a healthy dose of that in a couple of weeks if you join us. But we wanted to start out with Khalid's really, really helpful business perspective on Section 8.
Give up on my way home, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Give up on my way home, yeah. Give up on my way home, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me?